Hello, greetings projectors. I thought I would do a video to welcome all of the new people into the group. We have a lot of new people joining, several every day. So this group is expanding rapidly, and one of the things I'll suggest is that any topic that you're interested in, if you go up to the search, you go and search, and you can type in like the specific gate you're interested in, or the specific channel you're interested in, or really anything at all. Now, human design is a vast and intricate area. There is so much information on your body graph, and it's very easy to get lost, to get overwhelmed, to go in deep with a whole load of different information. Just to go really wide and to get overwhelmed by the amount of different information that there is out there about different things. So we're going to talk today about the basics. We're going to talk today about strategy. We're going to talk today about authority, and yeah, we're going to go into those things. And the trick with human design is really to implement the basics and to get the basics working well. So that's my tip for you. So yeah, does anyone have any questions on strategy and authority? We're going to talk about some of the basic types of projectors and how they're different. So any questions, just type them in the comments there. I'll be back in 1 second. Hey guys.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good.
Great. I'm going to leave you to it because I'm just doing a live broadcast.
Okay.
So I'm going to wish you farewell and all the best with your onward journey.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate staying. It was really fun.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
All right.
We're in Seattle. Look us up.
I will.
Yeah.
Seattle, huh?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We got a place to stay for you.
Awesome. Alrighty, so any questions about being a projector? If you're watching this, it'd be really handy if people would just share, especially if you're watching it live, how are you going with your experiment? Because you see, when you come across human design, there's two things that you can do. One thing you can do is start to get a whole load of information, and it's amazing, the information. It can be so accurate. And then the second part is to actually begin the experiment. And the experiment is the experiment of living as your type. So that's what we're talking about right here. Hi Iris, good to see you. You're totally welcome. Iris, you said thanks for going live. Look, I want to share straight up front here. I am not qualified in human design. I'm not an expert. I'm not a certified practitioner in human design, but I am a projector who has started to figure out some ways that I can experience success and that I can make it work for me, and that I've also been helping other people to get their designs to work for them. So what I'll say is the feedback I get is that I'm good with the basics, and I can help people with the basics. And here's the thing. As projectors, we have this capacity to be great guides for other people. As projectors, we have this capacity to assist other people. And it's really important that we are assisting other people when they want us to help them. Let me just try something here with the microphone. This may, maybe you can let me know if that makes things clearer. I've got a slightly new setup here, so maybe someone could just give me a bit of a thumbs up if this makes the audio any clearer for you to hear. Anyway, I'm going to assume that you all can hear me, else someone would have probably said something. Now please post any questions that you have up there on the side. Now we're going to talk about strategy and authority. Yeah, thank you. I just got a little thumbs up there. So we're going to talk about the strategy for the projector is to wait for invitation. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I had my my headphones plugged in, and I, for some reason, had that. It's got a little microphone right here, and I had the microphone sitting on the table. So thank you. Now, one thing about waiting for the invitation is that when an invitation comes, it's, you know, this thing about waiting for invitation. Sometimes I say it's like a finger pointing at the moon. So let's try without the microphone. Then we can do. How about now? I don't know, Paul. Maybe that's your internet, but let's see. Let's see. How is that for people? Maybe someone could just give me some feedback there. Can you hear me okay now? So all good. Let's continue. So it's like a finger pointing at the moon. Okay, so the finger is the words that says wait for the invitation. But what's it pointing at? Well, it's pointing at a whole way of being, a whole way of life, a whole way of existing in the world in a way that is in alignment with your type. Now, we're not generators. We're a very, very different type to the generators. Okay, good. So thank you for the feedback. It seems like we've got the sound setup is working. Good. So this thing about waiting for the invitation. Now, my tip for you is going to be to spend 80% of your time learning how wait for the invitation works for you. And we're going to we're going to talk a little bit about authority later, and there are so many different types of projector. We have the most different types within projector. There are the most different subtypes. See, basically, as an aside, if you're a generator, you've got the sacral defined, and there's all different types of generators, but they all have the sacral defined. They all have that one thing in common. You know, there's a certain number. There's like, how many is it? There's like 3, 6. I think there's like 8 different channels coming from the sacral center, and all generators will have one or more of those channels. So they all have something in common. The manifester, every single manifester has a motor connected to the throat. So they're all going to have one or more of those channels from the throat pointing down or across to going to eventually going to a motor. So sure, there's different kinds of manifestors. There's different kinds of manifesting generators. However, us projectors, we could be a projector with just like 2 centers defined up at the top and be a mental projector. We could be a projector with just 2 centers defined down the bottom and be an energy projector. We could have 8 centers defined and have like a triple split definition, or maybe even a quad split definition. So there are so many different types of projector, but waiting for the invitation is one thing that we all have in common. Now, I've talked on lives before about how waiting for the invitation means that it's right for the other person. You see, that if there's 100 people in the space, 100 people walking past, then me as a projector, I might be correct for maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe 5 of those people. And it's nothing to do with me. It's to do with them. And it's to do with whether they want, it's not really want like as in desire, but whether it's correct. See, this is mechanics. Whether it is correct for me to guide that particular person. Now, as a guide, what if you haven't already discovered this, what you're going to discover is that when you're assisting someone, if you're assisting someone in alignment, if you're guiding someone in alignment and it's correct, hey Larry, good to see you, man. So if it's correct, what you're going to feel is that it's so effortless, and a small little piece of input from you as a projector will make a big amount of difference to that other person. Okay? It could be helping them to be more efficient with how they use their energy. It could be helping them to get clarity on something. It could be any one of many things. Now, the assistance that you give may not even be anything that you have said. It could be that just by hanging out with you, this person has become clearer. It could be that just in your auric field, this person comes, they hang out with you, then all of a sudden they're like, ah, I get it now. Amazing. And they go off and and this is how powerful the aura of the projector is. Now, at the same time, if the person is not correct for us and we are not correct for them, we can end up with this situation of bitterness. And the bitterness comes because we can see so easily if they could just change this one thing, then Larry, you're brilliant. He says, good morning. Pardon my motors. Where are you, Larry? Where in the world are you? It's brilliant. I mean, the whole thing of these lives is supposed to be interactive. So yeah. But I mean, has anyone had this experience where you can really see, you can just see so easily where, where you could make so much difference, where you could help someone, where you could teach them something, where you could guide them, where you could help them to save energy, you could help them to save heartbreak, you could help them to save frustration, or you could help them to save bitterness if they're another projector. But the thing is, it's not about you and your skill to guide, it's about the other person as well. Of course, partly it's to do with your skill and your proficiency. So how does this work? Well, the way it works is how do you know? You see, this is the cool thing. How do you know if it's correct? If this person that's there that you could help is someone that you should help? Well, it's all about the invitation. And so Larry's just talking about, he's a 6'2", he's in Connecticut, and just saying about this thing of just doing it through the auric field. He says as a 6'2", he's finding he often doesn't even have to speak. So, you know, this is more advanced human design, but some of you may know that the 6th line goes through 3 different phases and matures to become the role model. And the role model is there to give guidance to others. So obviously it's like a projector squared, if you like. So coming back to the invitation. Now, the other part of the invitation is we've talked about the fact of whether so Iris is just saying she's experienced this all the time and she wishes she had some clarity in her own life. See, this is the thing, that us as projectors, we can only give what we've got. And so as guides, we need to have clarity for ourselves so that we can then give clarity to others. And we actually have one of the longest journeys to really come back to our own clarity and clear things up for ourselves. And that's an ongoing process. For me, I think it just goes on and on and on so that we can then be a guide to others, you see. And this is the other cool thing about waiting for an invitation, is that, you know, while we're waiting for an invitation, we can get clarity in ourselves. So we can invite other projectors to assist us in that way. It's a beautiful thing. Now, when we remember, the aura of the projector is focused and penetrating. So the projector aura is all about seeing straight into the G center of the other person. It's about seeing the other person. Hi, Eleanor. How are you doing? So we're just talking about the basics of being a projector and waiting for an invitation. So think how that is. That's that penetrating energy where we can see straight through. We can see straight into the heart, into the G center, straight into the core. When I say heart, I mean the heart of the matter. But it's the actual G center. We can see that person in front of us. So what's interesting here is that from the point of view of the other, it is sometimes correct and sometimes not correct. And that is when, you know, that's a really interesting thing, because when it's, like we said, when it's correct, it can be very useful and powerful for that person. When it is not correct for that other person, it can be a right pain in the ass for them. And we can come across as being busybodies, we can come across as being manipulative, and either which way we're going to get rejected. It's going to be like, nah, leave me alone. Now, the more focused we are, the more focused our laser beam is, the more insightful we are, the better we have to be at waiting for invitation. Because imagine it's like, imagine if someone's got this like really high powered laser, but they're using it in all the wrong situations. And, you know, you're not going to, the other people around you are not going to feel trust. They're not going to feel open. They're not going to feel like they want to be seen because they don't trust. They don't, and it's not like trust from the mind. It's a felt body sensation. So this is all about correct alignment. Now, let's say that there's a situation where we've got someone that, you know, let's say they love to feel seen. People often find this with being around a projector. They love to be seen. The projector sees them like no one else does. Remember, our aura as projectors is really focused on the other. It's focused on the person in front of you. And when you're talking with a projector, that person, they feel like you are they're the focus of your attention. And this is interesting. If we're in business, if we're promoting something, if we're promoting ideas, it should all be about the other person. Okay? So, you know, when you look down someone's Instagram feed and it's all about them, me, look at me here, look at me there, look at me in this place, that place. You're missing something. We're missing something with that. And this is really interesting when you write copy, when you write your message. I'll often go through something I've written and I'll be like, how can I make this more about the other person? And so this is why when I'm doing these lives, like, hey, Ron, hi, Maurice. It's super powerful when people bring something to work with, when people are there, when people are present, because then there can be some focus on that person and then everyone benefits because there's that person, maybe they've asked a question. Okay, so if you're a projector and you're working with a group as a facilitator, it's very much about focusing on one person at a time within the group. Generator aura is much more, generator aura is much more filling the room, and it's, you know, taking in everyone all at the same time. It's this enveloping aura. So it's quite different. So the second piece, so we've talked about whether it's right for that person to receive the focus, the penetration, where they want to be seen. But the other part of the equation is what is coming back to you. Yeah. Now, as projectors, one of our journeys is to learn to value ourselves, especially if we have the open ego or will center, which is 70% of people. I have it defined, but for those that have the red triangle not colored in, it really means that we can have issues with self-esteem and those kind of things. Larry, we might bring you on in a minute to talk about some of this stuff, because this is cool. This is good stuff. Larry's just saying he's getting pretty good at guessing people's open centers, that there's so much buzzing not self out there, open throats, all begging to be heard. Yeah, maybe we'll do it for another live, because we want to talk on this one about strategy and authority. Once again, for those new to the experiment, and also for people that have been in human design for a while, it's so powerful to come back to the simple basics of strategy and authority. It's like the basics of driving the vehicle. You know, they say that human design is a blueprint. So if you're driving the car and you know how to work the steering, and you know how to work the accelerator and the brakes, and then you know how to change gear, that's the basics. Now, with human design, we have all sorts of other instrumentation on there. We have the open centers to debug. We have definition, split definition, single definition, so on, so on, so on. We have incarnation cross. We've got profile. We've got variable. We've got gates. We've got channels. And, you know, if you're ready and you're exploring those things, then great. And always coming back to the simple things, always coming back to the strategy and authority. You see, you could become totally masterful at you could become absolutely masterful at living your strategy, at waiting to be invited. And that one thing could change your life. Or you could learn a whole load of information about everything to do with human design and not much would change. So absolutely, it's all about the foundation. And the cool thing is, this is going to guide us. This is going to guide us into where we need to go, just by following our strategy, just by waiting to be invited. So we may do another live at another time about debugging the open centers, because it is really a juicy topic. And that's where we can go to school to learn in those open centers. They're the ones that are white in the body graph. So, you know, once you're learning human design, it's definitely a good idea to learn the names of the different centers. There's 9 different centers. So it's good to learn which one is which. So you could Google which center is which, human design. And you're going to start to be able to learn all those 9 centers. And when they're open, there's debugging to be done. So let's come back to the energy exchange, the exchange that happens. It's almost like, as projectors, we are swapping our clarity and our insight for life force energy. And what that means is that we've got to get something out of the deal, and we need to value ourselves. We need to value the clarity that we bring. And when we are bitter, we can often be trying to give our clarity, trying to give our insight, trying to guide other people who just don't want to be guided. So not only is it not welcome, for them it's perceived as we're being like a pain in the ass, because they kind of know we're right, but they just don't, it's not what they want right now. And we need to be really humble and be able to respect that. So this is why, as projectors, the other thing is, think about this. We're not energy types. Sure, we have energy projectors, but we don't have a motor on the throat, and we do not have the sacral defined. So the generator and the manifestor are the energy types, and we are not energy types. So what that means is that we do not have 8-10 hours worth of work in us every day. So we've got to really make what we do count. We're working at a really high value. And that means that we need to make sure that we've got energy coming back in the opposite direction. And we want that to be energy that feels good. And yeah, so it's like, if it's generator energy coming back to us, it should be feeling good. It should be feeling juicy. We should be feeling energized from the work that we are doing on account of what's coming back to us. And one great form of energy exchange is money. So when there's money coming back towards us, it's a beautiful thing. So that's something to bear in mind. It's so interesting. You could give the same advice to someone for free and they could just be like, whatever. Or you could charge someone like $1,000 for the same advice. And because they've paid for that same advice, they're really open to it. And they're like, wow, that is amazing advice. So this is the other cool thing about waiting for the invitation. Someone invites you to go ahead and do something. You can be like, okay, well, yeah, that's an interesting invitation. What's attached to it? You know, how does this invitation work? Is there what values coming back towards me? You know, we shift from this place of like, I need to give my gift and no one wants it, and I'm feeling bitter because I want to change the world, but no one is open to it, to a wiser space where we're sitting there and we're like, hey, yeah, I know some things and I have some clarity, and if you want that, come and get it. Oh, and by the way, here's my schedule of fees. Of course, you guys know, you're watching this, and you other projectors out there, you know, if you're watching this, what I'm sharing with you now is, it's stuff that I'm sharing out of my experience, but it's a tiny fraction of what I have on offer. It's a tiny fraction. And interestingly, when we try and give too much, it can't be received anyway. So it's always this feeling of like, I talk to my clients about sitting on the back of the chair rather than on the front of the chair, super eager. Let me give you something. Let me give you something. Nah, be lazy. Be lazy. Sit back and wait. And wait for invitation. Wait for people to invite you. So would anyone like to, we could wrap up there. We've talked about strategy. Would anyone like to go into the different types of authority? There are many, many different types of authority. I'll tell you what I'll do. I will go through the different types of authority, and then if people want to go into them more, then we can go into them. And let's start with the other types just for fun. Let's start with the other types. So we know the reflector. We know the reflector has, sometimes you see it written as no inner authority or lunar authority. And it's all about waiting time to make decisions. We're waiting for a long time to make decisions. Waiting for a long time to get to know people, to get to meet people, to get to trust people. It's a bit like, sort of like the emotional wave, but it takes a lot longer. And the reflector is always changing. And so that's why they have that. The manifester. Half of manifestors have emotional authority. Most of the remainder of the manifestors have splenic authority. Some manifestors have the ego manifested authority. Okay, so they have the heart, the ego, the will center connected to the throat, and not a whole load. And maybe they've got stuff above the throat, but not a whole load more below the throat. So those are the three types of authority for a manifester. Now, generators and manifesting generators have only two types of authority. They're either sacral, or they're emotional authority. And they're very, very, very different types of authority. The emotional authority is never certain in the now. Okay, so yeah, as projectors, we've got all sorts of different authority. So the most popular type is the emotional authority, and that has no truth in the now. Once again, the emotional authority, it's like you get an invitation, you're like, you haven't had an invitation for like a year, and you get what feels like a really good invitation, and you're like, yeah, let me sleep on that. Then we have the splenic authority. Splenic, I'm a splenic projector. Now, emotional authority projectors, obviously they're all energy projectors. We've got energy projectors, classic projectors, and mental projectors. Now, splenic authority projectors can either be emotional, they can either be, let me start that again. Splenic projectors can either be energy projectors, or they can be classic projectors, depending on if they have a motor defined or not. Then we have quite an unusual type, which is the ego projected projector. That's the authority is coming from the heart, the will, the ego. And they're actually energy projectors. And they all have the channel that connects across to the G center, which is the channel of initiation. Then we have projectors who are what we call self-projected projectors. And they have the G center and the throat and nothing below the G center. They may or may not have the upper centers defined, the head centers defined. And then we have mental projectors who have nothing defined below the throat. They either have two, or they either have the top two centers, or the throat and the ajna, or all three of the top centers. And they're mental projectors. And every single one of those has a really different authority. And they make decisions in really different kind of ways. So are there any questions about any of those different types of authority? It's quite a big chunk to go into and do all those. And I'm learning, because I'm so passionate about all of this, but I'm learning to just wait. You know, it's like there's got to be some energy. You know, do you guys have any questions about any of the particular types of authority? I think there's 7. Is that right? So we've got emotional, we've got splenic, we've got will, or ego, we've got let me check if I haven't missed any. So we've got emotional, splenic, will, G center, and then we've got mental projector. So I think there's 5 different types. That's right, there's 5 types of authority within the projector type. Okay, so yeah, the splenic authority is definitely one of them. So we got two questions coming through here. The questions about splenic authority and questions about self-projected. Okay, so who's self-projected on here? Ron is self-projected, and we also had Eleanor on, who's also self-projected. I'm not sure if she's not there. Okay, so the splenic authority. The cool thing about the spleen is that the spleen is going to tell you if something's a bad idea. Awesome. So Tom's emotional authority. I know Paul's emotional authority as well. Joe is self-projected. Joe, aren't you? Joe, I think you're ego projected, but I could be wrong. I'm 90% sure that you're ego projected. And Ron's self-projected, yeah. Yeah, okay. So people want to know about the spleen, and people want to know about being self-projected. So, yeah, and Tom was curious about asking questions. Okay, so here we go. So, the spleen is going to tell you if things are dangerous or unhealthy, but you need to listen. You know, it's like make friends with fear. And just because there's fear doesn't mean that you shouldn't do something. But it's kind of like the way I feel my splenic authority is it's always tracking things that I should pay attention to, that I should be wary of. So, for example, if I'm riding my motorbike fast down the road, the spleen is just saying, it might just give me a little, slow down, just slow down right now. And I'll slow down, and then a car will do something unpredictable in front of me. My mind would never have known about it. But in my spleen, it's like that gut feeling of like, don't do that. Now, it's not to say, like when we start to tune in, for me, starting to tune into my splenic authority, there's often situations where I'll feel afraid to do something, but it's still the right thing for me to do. So, but it's like I do it knowing that there's danger there. Proceed with caution. Be really aware, be really alert. This is the spleen. The spleen is about being alert, being switched on, being very present in the now, in this moment. What is vitally important to me right now? Cool. And thank you for the feedback. You know, this is so much easier for me as a projector, getting the feedback, getting the questions. But you see, the thing is, if I just keep on spouting out information, blah, 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 there's no space. Now, that doesn't give me any energy, right? Whereas when I'm waiting a bit more, the questions are coming. And it's also like, you guys have to work a little bit for the information. You got to ask smart questions, me included. We got to ask good questions. Questions are a projector's best friend. So learning to ask good questions is the single most powerful thing that you can do as a projector. And people can tell when you ask intelligent questions. People could be like, wow, this person knows what's going on because of the questions they're asking. Yeah. So that's the splenic authority for me. What else did we have? We had some people were asking about the self-projected projector. Now, What do I know about self-projected projectors? Well, let's come back to the definition. They have the G center, that yellow diamond, and that's connected to the throat. There's 3 different channels, either an individual channel, the one in the middle, or the collective channels on either side. What I've noticed about self-projected projectors is that they are very unpredictable. A little bit how manifestors can be unpredictable. So manifestors have a motor on the throat, and they're designed to do things really quickly and get things done. For me, I find the self-projected projectors to be, I find them like, they don't have the same repelling kind of thing, the same kind of feeling of like, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm around manifests, I feel this kind of like, it's a bit spiky. It's a bit like, a bit abrupt, like they're going to repel me. They could go to anger. There's this kind of like almost like an edginess to being around manifestors. When I'm around self-projected, I don't feel that. I feel much more, it feels much more kind of like warmth from the self-projected projector, but they're still unpredictable, and I find that beautifully refreshing. It's kind of like they're almost like a type unto themselves. And there's a really cool document for any self-projected projectors who haven't read it. There's a document in the files section that I've read that really helped. Now, the self-projected authority is all about speaking the truth, speaking in order to know what's true. Okay, so this is very, very different to guiding someone. It's how does a self-projected projector know when they are on track, if they should do A or if they should do B? Well, they need to talk about it from inside the body, and as that person is talking, they get to hear the sound of their voice, and they're like, oh yeah, that thing I just said, that feels true. Or that thing I just said, now that didn't ring as true. That didn't resonate as truth in my body. So they might talk a lot about something they're going to do. And then some of the things they may never end up doing. And some of the things they will end up doing. So this is a self-projected projector. Ron's saying he has the 1/8. I think that's the prodigal. It's the central channel. And it's, I read somewhere that Ra said in a plane crash, you know, you've landed and you've got some survivors to a plane crash, and he was saying how the 1/8 just sort of knows, but it doesn't, like, sometimes the other channels sound more impressive, but the 1/8 just knows. It just has this way of knowing. It's individual. So a couple of questions I want to cover off. Joe, the ego projected and self-projected are totally different types. Okay, the ego projected is it's an energy projector because it has a motor, and the ego projected is very unusual. It's much more of an unusual type than the self-projected. The ego projected is all about willpower. Do I have the willpower for this thing? If I start this thing, am I going to finish it off? Would it be something that I would enjoy finishing off? So this is all about the ego and the will, and that's that red triangle, and they've got the channel that connects to the G center. So they also have the G center, but self-projected do not have the will center. Self-projected are a non-energy type of projector. They're a classic projector. Okay, so they're very different types. Larry's asking about what's your experience guiding emotional beings as a splenic type. It's very magical and very, very delicate. 1/8 is the prodigal. I'm 90% certain that 1/8 is the prodigal as a channel. The freaked genius is the one above it. It's the 2343 connecting the ajna to the throat. So they're both part of the individual circuit. So the question is about guiding people with emotional authority. So we'll come to that in a second. Yeah. Joe, what I would say for you is back to strategy and authority. Joe just said she needs to keep reading. Like, what I will say, Joe, is about strategy and authority. You know, you could do, and this is for all of us as projectors, you can do an audit of, just look back at your life of key events, or look back at the last week and be like, hey, what decisions did I make here, and which were in alignment with my strategy, with my authority, and where did I wait for an invitation and where did I not, and which of the invitations did I get were good quality invitations. Remember this, guys, just because you've got an invitation does not mean it's correct. Yeah? Wait for the invitation and then use your authority to wait for the invitation, then use your authority to make the decision. So, so yeah, not every invitation is correct. So maybe someone who's on the call on this live can actually look up the 8.1 channel. I thought it was a prodigal, but I'm being told it's some different information. Natalie has made the point saying the ego projector doesn't connect to the throat. Okay, so the ego projector doesn't connect to the throat, and this is a really valid point, right? Because if it's the ego, the will connects to the throat, then we would be a manifester. So it's a good point. Okay. Could we talk about the 4130? It's not a channel I know particularly well. The 1333 is prodigal. The 18 is the role model. All right, so we're talking about channels here, and I did want to keep this at a basic level. So the question that's left unanswered is about emotional authority beings. Like, how is it to guide someone with emotional authority? One thing that I find really powerful is to give emotional authority, people, clients, friends, whoever, a structure. Remember, the Freak to Genius is the channel of structuring. It's part of the incarnation cross of explanation that I have. So if I can give someone a structure to help them to get success, then that works really well for me as a projector. So what I sometimes do is I'll get them to track for a week or longer, and each day to be able to actually say they're making a decision, right? Remember, authority is about making a decision. It's not about like, oh, how do I feel about something for the sake of how I feel about it. It's authority is in order to help us to make decisions, right? So we've got the splenic type that's tracking, is this safe for me? Is this safe for me? Is there danger here? And really being aware of that. We've got the ego projected saying, oh, do I have the willpower to finish this thing off? Do I have the willpower to follow through with this? Is this what I really want to be doing? Then we've got the emotional authority saying, oh, does it feel good for me on balance over a period of time? So they're all really different. And of course, then we've got the self-projected with the G center, who's like talking about it in order to find out what they think. And then there's a mental projector who's talking about it so that other people can tell them what sounds true about it all. So, all right. Now, one thing to remember is that I'm a 3-5, okay? And, you know, I don't know all of the channels yet. I'm still learning all the different channels. And, you know, there's this thing called the internet. So one thing I really would encourage you guys is to learn, you know, research things, look into things, learn things. We've got, yeah, there's some really good stuff in the comments. So I'll leave you to read those. So just back to the thing about with the emotional wave. Helping someone to be aware of their emotional wave, helping someone to track the emotional wave over a period of time, right? So it's like, okay, it's Wednesday and you have a decision to make. So the first thing to do is to encourage someone with emotional authority to push back on it, especially if the route is undefined, because the undefined route down at the bottom is they're going to be under pressure to make a decision and do something straight away to get free of the pressure. So undefined route and defined emotional center is a very interesting combination. However, now the person's waiting. They're waiting for the emotional wave. But how does that person actually track it? Well, one way is they could ask the question before they go to bed at night and then wake up in the morning and write down how they're feeling about it. Okay, so say you've got this amazing offer. It seems like an amazing offer to be in partnership with someone and to co-create something with someone. One day you wake up, the first day you wake up, and you feel a bit nervous about it. You're like, oh, I feel nervous, but I'm not sure why. So you write down, yeah, I feel nervous about it. There's this sort of feeling of just nervousness, and here's where I feel it in my body, and you write that down. Okay, the next day the person with emotional authority wakes up, and today they're feeling really excited about it. They're feeling really delighted. They're feeling really energized. They're feeling like, wow, this could really give me a whole load of energy if I do this. So they'll write down energized on the second day. Then the third day they might wake up and they might feel like real fear reaction in their body, like tight and knotted up. And they'll be like, okay, fear. So over the course of the week, another day they might be angry. They might be angry about they might feel anger, maybe their anger or the other person's anger. You see, the emotional center is a sensing center. So it's giving you all the information. Now, if you're entering into some kind of relationship, that relationship is going to have peaks and troughs. That relationship is going to have days where it feels amazing and days where it feels shitty. Now, the cool thing is that the emotional center can give you all that information up front. So if I'm guiding someone with emotional authority, then I'm going to be encouraging them to do exactly that, to track that over a period of time. So by the end of the week or however long, they then have clarity, not certainty, but clarity. The emotional center has told them, it's given them the information of what they're going to be dealing with over a period of time. So are there any other questions that people have at this time? I'm aware there are some questions and some comments that, I haven't gone through everything there, but is there anything else that people would like to know about the different types of authority? We've talked about most of them. The one we haven't talked about is the mental authority, but I don't know if we have any more mental authority on the call right now. Any other questions? I think we're going to wrap up. So yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. And I'm going to go and look up the channel 1.8 again, because it's obviously, me as a third line. It's an area that I've identified. Well, I'd like to be clearer on that one. I'd like to know more about that particular channel. So let's wrap it up there. And all I'll say is, really make the most of those opportunities that you have to guide others. It could come in unexpected ways, and it's a beautiful thing to be in service to others. And you're really welcome, Ron. Yep, thanks, Thomas. And I want to share my vision with you guys, where we have so much to give as projectors. We have so much value to bring. And, I just see that the fact that if we can support each other, we can support, look at me, you're welcome, Joe, totally. I'm maybe a little bit further into my experiment than some people here. I also know there's people in the group who've got loads more experience than me, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because I know there are things that I can guide with. I know there are ways that I can support other people. And it's really up to us to, totally, Jared, totally welcome. Well,
actually, Adrian, the mind is an authority. It's not the mind, it's outer authority, right? So as projectors, us using our voice and explain and communicating, it's outer authority. It's not inner authority. The way people make decisions correctly with human design is through the inner authority. The way we use our voice is outer authority, which is communicating with others. So that's a nice distinction. And there's nothing wrong with outer authority. There's nothing wrong with communicating. But the thing is, each person needs to find the truth in their body in different ways. But really, it's all about coming back to the body. The body knows. The mind can change from one moment to the next. Every single one of the authorities, the inner authorities, is all about tuning into your body. Now, with like mental authority, mental projectors who have no authority or mental authority, it's actually about speaking so that the information can come out of the open centers in the body and someone can hear the truth of it. So it really is all about being aware of what's happening in the body. Yeah, thank you, Joe. Yeah, like, you know, I've always found this, like when I was a swim coach, I found that my most satisfying you know, helping people scenarios were helping people who struggled, helping people get the basics, helping people to find their confidence. And there are plenty of other human design specialists who can help with the more advanced stuff. And yeah, Adrian, I think we're on the same page. I think we're agreeing there. So yeah, the mind is definitely not an authority. And you know, this is the thing, the mind gets into all of those open centers. The mind gets in all the open centers and blocks them up. And we have our stories in those open centers. And we have our, you know, it's like, yeah, there is the mind. And it's called not self in human design. And that's something that we can clear, that we can work through. So, yeah, let's wrap up. Look, I definitely want to say to you guys that this idea of people learning together and people being able to support each other in learning, I really feel like, you know, if there's one thing from human design that you get, if there's one thing about being a projector that you really get and it goes deep inside you and you master that one piece of human design, that is then something you can share with other people. And there's a real difference between repeating information that you've heard and just saying it out again. Goes in the ears, into the brain, and back out of the mouth again. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's a real difference with that kind of sharing compared to when you absorb information into your being, and then the voice comes from out of the cells of your body. It's like when you've internalized it, once you've absorbed it, then it can come out in a different way. So yeah, that's what we're talking about here. Adrian, I think, he's saying he's a mental projector here. He says, because we mental projectors don't call it mental authority, it's more like environmental or processed based, I like, or no direct inner authority. Yeah, I think Jovian talks about no inner authority. But Adrian, tell me if you've heard something different, but on a practical level, if someone watching this is mental authority and they're new to this, how do they work it? So my understanding of how it is someone who's mental authority is they need to use a sounding board. And what that means is if they're making a decision, they talk about it. And they talk to someone who will listen, and they talk to someone who will not give them advice, and they talk to someone who will just hear them, and they are talking, someone with mental authority is talking from the body and just speaking it out. And that person is a sounding board, and that person can then say to them, hey, did you notice when you said that bit just there? That really resonated as true. And that bit just there you were saying, I don't know, it didn't really feel, it wasn't really feeling you. But that bit just there, I felt you 100%. And then the mental projector goes, oh yeah, right, okay, yeah, okay. And that it gives them more information. So it's very, very, very similar to the self-projected, but mental authority is speaking to have someone else tell them, yes, I felt the resonance of truth in that part just there, coming out of your body, in your voice. The self-projected, they're like, oh yeah, I'm hearing myself, the resonance of truth coming out of my body. So yeah. And always, you know, thanks Adrian, I appreciate the dialogue here. And as always with anything that I share, if there is something that I share that you disagree with, or something I share that you feel is, you have different information, I really love to be corrected. I really love to be questioned. I love to be challenged or corrected if I'm wrong. And I'm a 3-5, I'm a third line. I learn by making mistakes. And any information that I'm giving you has to be, any information that's coming out has to be heard, and you've got to decide for yourself. You've got to make your own mind up. You've got to test it. And this is what I was talking about, owning the knowledge. Test it out. So, you know, if you take one thing that's been shared here and go test it out, that'd be super powerful. What if we were like a band of researchers and we could go out and really test all of this? You know, I'm testing out splenic authority and I'm observing and watching how it is for the other authorities, right? But what if you all go and test out your authority, and then we come back, you know, we come back to it and share our results. So I'm going to wrap up now. Adrian, I suspect there's more to be talked about here for mental projectors. He's saying it's process based and will clean your connection to. Yeah, let's wrap up now. I'm feeling like my energy's done for this live, and let's talk again about. We can talk another time about cleaning up the. We can talk about cleaning up the not self from the open centers. Elsa, we're just wrapping up, so you might want to jump in at the start. Thanks for participating, and I look forward to catching you guys all soon. Ciao for now.